Um, 70 years ago this month, Winston Churchill observed, "We shape our buildings, and afterwards, our buildings shape us." And this seems a very fitting framework for today's session, our TEDx session here at LakeAluma, where we are looking at how surroundings matter. And it seems appropriate that Churchill gives us a framework for how we might share some of our work and how we view the opportunities before us as we continue to work in Oklahoma. And it's also fitting to offer up the idea that we could expand the conversation, this dialogue between people and their surroundings, and consider the possibility that first, in some form, our surroundings choose us. We are born into an environment. We didn't make that decision. And subsequently, hopefully, we establish the means to choose our own surroundings thereafter. For those who are ambitious, who have vision, who are industrious, we then can step forward and consider how we can either alter those surroundings or to create new surroundings. Now, first of all, it's important to note that Tori and I didn't necessarily pick Oklahoma City. It picked us, and we are very fortunate in that regard. We came here as a result of the Oklahoma City National Memorial Competition. We were one of 5 finalist teams. And I distinctly remember sitting at the rooftop terrace at Chelino's, drinking with Tori a margarita. It was the night of April 16th, 1997. It was a long time ago. Bricktown Canal hadn't been finished yet. And we looked up at the skyline of Oklahoma City and felt a little bit unimpressed. And I remember very distinctly saying to Tori, "I could never live here." So it's important to understand that context, having come here from Berlin and recognizing that the context was within this frame of exciting opportunities of culture, of architecture, and how it engaged the environment in Berlin, the wrapping of the Reichstag, Christo, and so forth, and that coupled with this devastating tragedy in Oklahoma City. So when we think about the question of, well, why did we stay? It seemed very evident that after considering the options of what had always been at the top of our list, whether it was Denver, Austin, Seattle, right, the typical list of where you might want to end up, we started to realize that Oklahoma City offers something that none of these places could ever do. We had a profession, a design community that welcomed us. We had a business and lay community that wanted to see more of us in how we could contribute to improve the quality of the community. And certainly the landscape of Oklahoma, and it's very fitting that here we are sitting atop LakeAluma and recognize how much our landscapes could inspire us, our work, the materials that they offer, the history, and so forth. These are all tools that we treasure as designers. But now maybe Oklahoma was beckoning us and saying, if you come here and practice, if you come here and teach, perhaps you can do work that continues to give back and to create opportunities of hope, much as the Oklahoma City National Memorial sought to do. And so throughout this, we recognize the people here are beautiful. The opportunity to teach at the University of Oklahoma was very alluring. And certainly the opportunity for many collaborative practices. This is a very vibrant design community and has very exciting opportunities for so many of us here. And certainly, as I mentioned, the light, the quality materials, and there's actually a work ethic, a notion of craft here that we really appreciate. And so when we start to look forward and consider, well, how can you separate the person from the place when describing one's work, one's ideas, it's important to understand who Tori and I are actually about. And we arrive at our notions of place through very different paths. Tori is a born Okie, okay, and she claims to be 164th Cherokee. And she's also, it's very important to know, by the time she was 18, she had lived in 16 different residences, traveling with her mother, moving around between Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas. She also, luckily, learned how to drive, that at the age of 14, on a tractor with her grandfather, right on the edge of the great American prairie, and spent a lot of time in his wood shop, learning how to make anything she could think of out of wood. And it's also there that she learned how to paint and how to sketch. And through that environment, that landscape, that ethos created by her grandparents, she developed an impressive work ethic and is a very industrious person. I, on the other hand, am a little bit different. I am of German background. German is actually my first language. I only knew of one home by the time I was 18. I was born of an anthropologist and a cultural geographer university professor. We didn't take vacations, we took field trips. And our photos consisted more of rocks, geographic strata, glacier-shaped landscapes tied in with castles and churches and old medieval plazas. But what was incredible was in meeting Tori in architecture school, we both found ourselves within this passion of wanting to make great places for people. And so it was at that time that we said, we're staying. Let us seep ourselves into this Oklahoma landscape, into this culture, into this history, and see how we can, with others, create more opportunities, whether it's through ways of altering the landscape, our surroundings, and that's more at a policy level, thinking about how can our interventions change the way people are able to develop, both socially, in terms of their physical health, and their economic wealth. And we also thought a bit about how our new work, our architectural projections, could be informed by our landscape and give back. So you start to see this kind of reciprocity or duality between place and how it shapes us and how we can create new place-making, place-shaping efforts. So I'll walk through here a number of projects that begin to kind of play out some of the opportunities that Oklahoma has offered that we think are critical in how this community continues to develop. And these are opportunities that are for all of us to seize, no matter whether it's through architecture, through design. Each one of us, I guarantee you, can find an opportunity in Oklahoma to seize and find a way to lift us up, to say, okay is not good enough. Oklahoma is a great place. And so when you look at, for example, the 2001 studio that Tori and I collaborated on, it was about designing a boathouse on the Oklahoma River. And we had heard that there was money there to build a boathouse on the newly dammed river. And immediately we went back to our days. We had just moved 2 years earlier from Cambridge, Massachusetts, where you have the Harvard Boat Club. And it sits there adorning the Charles River. And excitedly we thought, wow, we're going to build a boathouse. And so we thought we'd have a studio that allowed students to develop ideas of how could this boathouse symbolize something of some sort of cultural achievement to serve as a backdrop to our community. And the students developed their designs, and lo and behold, a couple years later, we learned that Chesapeake had set up $250,000 for a Morton building, a metal building for the new boathouse. Hearing that, we thought, well, let's share our work and talk a bit about the richer potential. How could this boathouse, that's all about promoting health, engaging landscapes, taking in fresh air, natural light, to become smarter, more productive people, how could it also symbolize the new places that we are going? So we shared with the administrators at the boathouse of the Oklahoma City Rowing Club the students' ideas, and lo and behold, within 3 months or so, we heard that Chesapeake had now set aside $2.5 million for a beautiful, what is now award-winning boathouse on the Oklahoma River, right? All because of seizing opportunity, bringing students in and recognizing here's a way to shape policy, to alter the existing environment. Another project that we undertook in 2003 focused on 35 acres of fallow land, beautifully situated between the Central Business District, Bricktown, and the Health Sciences Center. And we asked ourselves in that studio, how can you take better advantage of these walkable locations where you could walk to entertainment, walk to the doctor, you could walk to your office, right? And so we set the students off on the mission of creating a vision for a mixed-use, walkable neighborhood. And so they developed this image, this overview of creating vistas and creating densities that make people feel more comfortable in their urban environment. And within 1 year, local developers who had seen the students' work seized on it as a real opportunity, and it is now today becoming and evolving into a very vibrant, mixed-use Maywood Park neighborhood. Another example of seizing opportunities and trying to shape better places for where children can learn was the John Rex Elementary School, what is now the John Rex. We worked with the city and the public schools system and the school board to identify possible sites in the downtown area for a new downtown school. And we recommended this site at Sheridan and Walker, believing that there was a synergy, potential for a curriculum to connect with the city gardens, right? The Myriad Gardens, the Botanical Gardens, the downtown library, local businesses, the Museum of Art. And so we recommended the Walker-Sheridan location, and within a few years, the board voted and accepted that location, and today we see the John Rex in construction, where they are developing a very unique curriculum to seize the opportunity that this location offers. So again, an opportunity through policy, right? These are urban design recommendations to take advantage of what we have and make it better for our children, right? So again, better surroundings. And the last example I share with you is the Downtown to the River studio. We collaborated with the City Planning Department of Oklahoma City about the idea of, now that the dam has been built, the river is becoming more attractive, how could we orchestrate a connection between the CBD and the river and do it in such a way that creates richer neighborhoods, that enhance social diversity, that create a wider range of affordable housing where people no longer have to count on a bus without a bus shelter to get to the museum, okay? And so we worked together with the students and developed this master plan that was all about connecting the downtown to the river along Harvey Boulevard, what we called the Harvey Promenade. And within a few years, the Harvey Promenade and that studio formalized and became the Core to Shore Master Plan. Again, an opportunity looking at our surroundings through the eyes of students and how can they learn to see opportunities to make better surroundings, and it leveraging into something that now is our blueprint for moving forward as a community. On a similar note, in terms of shaping policy, is an effort that Tori has been a part of for many years, and that is through the co-founding of EatWise Oklahoma City. And EatWise's mission is to elevate the health culture of Oklahoma City public schools through education and advocacy. They have worked diligently trying to change primarily the food that is served in our schools. One of the largest budget items of any school is food. It's not books, okay? So we spend so much time teaching children what is good food, and yet what we serve is not. And so through the work of EatWise, yet another opportunity to continue to shape surroundings, the learning environments of our children. And so we then shift to the conversation of, well, how does the environment now shape new works of architecture? And of course, it's easy to start looking at the project that brought us here to begin with, the Oklahoma City National Memorial. The memorial is all about learning from place. A 350-member community committee created the mission statement for our work. And we looked at the existing topography, we looked at the mission statement, and sought to find a way to nestle this memorial room, this sacred space, in the midst of this urban environment, and to learn from the light, to learn from local palettes, local materials, to create a space that was all about self-reflection, but it was also a place about hope. And so through its materiality, through its scale, it is very much shaped by what we are given by this dynamic Oklahoma landscape, but it in turn gives something back. It gives us a place where we can anchor and understand what happened in Oklahoma City, but also a place to take away hope, that sense of hope that we can do better. Our children need to do better than we in how we create our world, our surroundings. Another project, and again, we love people in all of this work, the Oklahoma people, is a project that came to us shortly after we finished the Oklahoma City National Memorial, and that was the Okerhater Episcopal Center in western Oklahoma. In fact, the neighbor came to me and said, "Would you ever be interested in designing a church?" Which, of course, is almost a dream for any architect. So of course, we'd like to. And as we started to get to know this community better, we realized this is actually a Cheyenne Arapaho community, merging with a Western Episcopalian church from Oklahoma City. And so we were tasked to design something that made sense to both of these differing cultures. And so it was very interesting to look at, to try and understand how did the Cheyenne Arapaho build, and what were the methodologies that they used and revered and took hold in, and to compare that with the local typologies offered by the town of Watonga. And so we started to say, well, if you are asking us for this church to look like a teepee, we would like to respond with the statement, we think the church should learn from the teepee. And so we set forth through this cultural exploration, an exploration of typologies, what the landscape had to offer this potential project. And here you see Sweat Lodge in the foreground and the Episcopal Center in the background. It's all about learning from how to take this basic frame and to clad it with very durable, resistant elements, and to create a space that is very simple, but very much speaks, it resonates with that landscape, with the people who use it and occupy it. And currently we have in construction our new office building. It's basically a collaborative environment that is very much at a crossroads of history and our contemporary condition. It was the home to a lot of the major film production companies based typically on the coast, and it was here from which they distributed their films. And what's interesting to see through its revival, much to the thanks of Chip Fudge and others, to see how you developed this typology hugging Sheridan, but it was also served quietly, and this is the building, this ugly little building that we've in the process of purchasing and adding on to. But it's important that when you look at the historical platting of it, that there were actually railroad tracks in the back alley. And those railroad tracks is how they delivered the films to the warehouses. And so we started to take inspiration from the railroad itself, but also from the boxcars that traveled up and down delivering those films. And so those started to merge together into what we consider to be our own boxcar for working and for collaborating. And so this is the Sliver building on our narrow site. And you see how we are bringing back the existing building, the one story, back to life, but adding the second story on the second floor, using materials that they used for boxcars themselves. It's a cheap material, it's durable, it's very easy to gather and to work with, and that became the basis for this particular project. So again, looking at history, locally available trades, typologies and so forth to see how they can shape what it is that we choose to contribute in our new and evolving downtown. And of course, there's the Oklahoma City Skydance Bridge, charged by the mayor through a national competition to become a symbol for Oklahoma. And from this, we started to look very closely at what are things that are distinctly about us. What are the beauties that we offer? And you can look no further than our state corridor. We chose the scissortail flycatcher, something distinctly Oklahoman. And we started to ask ourselves, what can the wind, what can the scissortail flycatcher do for us? And of course, you're on Route 66. What better than an icon like the Catoosa whale to be inspired for this new iconic structure? And so here you take the bone structure of the scissortail flycatcher and understand how it's been shaped by its local forces, and marry it with the ubiquitous trades of oil and field, natural gas field explorations, and the fact that we have a lot of welding, a lot of steel, and turn that into an image of a bird that's landing over this highway and marking this vertical place in the midst of our horizontal landscape. And that then results in what is the Oklahoma City Skydance Bridge, very much inspired by its local conditions, but at the same time trying to create something that continues to shape us. And of course, when we start to look back at the fact that the people who shape the places are always in connection with what is going on within themselves and the dynamic and so forth, it's hard not to ignore another project that we have going, led by Tori, of course, as well, and that is an actual story about Stop and Amy. And Stop and Amy are two very lovable armadillos. Stop is a thinker, Amy is a doer. And together, they're always seeking ways to develop new ways of creating and shaping their environment. So Stop is there to develop the vision, Amy is there to make sure that it gets done. But all of it always inspired by the local community, the local landscapes, in tune with the fact that we shape our surroundings, they shape ourselves, and it's an ongoing dialogue. Thank you very much.